In this video, we'll be discussing the top 10 statistical best decks in Marvel Snap, and we have them organized by win rate. These win rates have been determined using a variety of different sources to ensure that you're getting the most accurate statistical analysis as possible. Let's get started. So first deck we're talking about here is Debuff Evolutionary, which has emerged as the top evolutionary based deck. Now it's utilizing the debuff mechanics of Scorpion, Cyclops, Thing, and of course Spider-Woman in order to get out this abomination either free or near free at some point in the game. It's actually running Shocker as well, which is interesting. Some people are subbing out Shocker for Luke Cage, considering you are getting a lot of mirror matches, but this is currently the highest win rate edition of the deck. But just note that Shocker is an easy swap with Luke Cage if you so choose. Now one of the low-key winners of this deck is Misty Knight, which the inclusion of Misty Knight does increase the win rate by 2%. So I do strongly suggest that you do run Misty Knight in this debuff evolutionary deck. But ultimately, one of the absolute best decks in Marvel Snap right now. Very consistent across all matchups. Shuri Sauron at 59%, neck and neck with High Evolutionary, continues to be one of the absolute best archetypes, despite the 1 power nerf to Shuri. Surprise, surprise, taking 1 power off of Shuri didn't really do anything. It's still one of the absolute best decks in the game, and the best thing about it is if you're a relatively new player or you're free to play, the components of this deck are by far the cheapest in any of the decks we're going to be speaking about because they're all Series 3 cards. They just synergize incredibly well, and it's of an extremely consistent deck with a very straightforward play pattern. The only disadvantage, of course, is that when your opponent knows they can't compete with a 28 Red Skull or whatever, they're just going to retreat. So sometimes it's very hard to catch your opponent by surprise with this deck. So the 8 cubers are pretty rare, but snapping early and often, especially if you have Sauron in hand, is key to success. Moving on to the next deck is Loki Collector, which completely fell to the meta over the last couple weeks and has actually kind of come back storming, and sure enough, it's actually running an incredible win rate. Part of this is because Triple M's play rate has decreased. When Triple M first came out, Mobius and Mobius, it was actually running about a 32% play rate. Now it's dropped into the low 20s and it continues to drop. With that drop, Loki and its cost discounting effect allows it to kind of excel in the meta because you basically just do what your opponent's decks are doing, but you do it cheaper. And that's pretty damn strong. Surprise, surprise. So Loki continues to be one of the absolute best decks and is re-emerging in the meta thanks to the reduction of play of Mobius and Mobius. Now here is one of the brand new decks that is kind of making rounds here, and I'm calling it Manhawk. It's a pretty cool deck. It's 58% win rate, very high, and it has a disruption element to it, which is pretty good. You're owning the Korg, the Black Widow, the recently buffed Black Widow, and of course you're owning the Zabu Darkhawk package with Iron Lad, Man-Thing, and Shang-Chi. You have the closer of Doctor Doom if so necessary, but you do have the option of playing something like a Darkhawk and Man-Thing on turn 6, or Man-Thing and Shang-Chi on turn 6, and of course you do have the tech of the Luke Cage and Shadow King, which is pretty damn strong in the current meta, especially against a lot of the Destroy, which we're seeing. You can easily completely destroy a Venom, for instance, if you're using Shadow King, and even like Bishops from the Bounce base list and Angela's from Kitty Pryde base list. They all hate Shadow King, so a very good inclusion in this deck, and one of the reasons why the win rate hovers around 58%. The next deck here is Sarah Control, which is kind of making a bit of a comeback. It wasn't really popular this past month, but it's starting to get figured out a little bit. A couple modifications to the deck has increased the win rate to a pretty solid 57%. And of course, this is utilizing Elsa Bloodstone. Elsa Bloodstone has been consistent in these mid-range decks, by the way. Elsa continues to be a very strong deck in inclusion in a lot of different archetypes. So the result is that Elsa is going to be prevalent in a couple of these lists here, and Sarah Control is no different. You basically have an answer to everything, and you put up power with the Mysterio Hitmonkey combination, and of course the Bishop, which synergizes wonderfully with all the power being put on the board at once. Now the interesting thing about this is as you move from Sarah Control, you go to Elsa Move. This is the Silky Smooth style deck, and it is running a 56% win rate. Very consistent, very strong, and it allows you to access locations that you might not generally be able to access. And what's cool about this is it's actually running Legion again. Legion is seeing play because now people aren't respecting Legion, so you can catch people by surprise with Legion on turn 5 or 6 even. So that's pretty damn cool. It's interesting to see something like Legion re-emerge in the meta at a 56% win rate, which is solid because honestly, Legion has completely fallen off, but this deck seems to really like it. Once again, a very strong list. We go from Elsa Move to Elsa Foster combo. Now this was what we were calling Glenny Stone prior, and essentially what it is your Jane Foster style combo deck that allows you to pull the Wasp, Yellow Jacket, and of course Mjolnir from Thor, which is right there. I almost didn't see him because he's a froggy in this picture. But this deck generally plays very well. It has a very miracle-centric turn 6 where you are going to be playing, a ton of different stuff down, like 5 or 6 cards or whatever, depending on how many cards you have in your hand. But generally speaking, it is an excellent performer that allows you to put up a ton of points with explosive power on turn 6, but obviously susceptible to wave Sandman, and others. So just be very aware of that. As we go from Elsa Foster combo, we go to another Elsa deck, which is Elsa Balance. Now, I promise we're not going to be talking about Elsa much more, but Elsa is being a very consistent package in a number of different archetypes, and we see this in Balance. Now, this is a much more complex deck to play. The win rate is dropped to about 55%. It's only a couple percentage points, but the deck does feel more difficult to pilot here. What's interesting about it is you are using the Korg in addition to the Darkhawk, so the Darkhawk package being splashed in right now and so the win rate perspective shows that it actually has increased the win rate significantly. So the ability to bounce the Korg and repeatedly pump that Darkhawk, just getting a nice value Darkhawk out there is pretty solid, but ultimately you are also using the Black Widow to stuff a draw from their hand, which is an effect like putting a rock in their deck as well. So you basically have, bouncing effects of Black Widow and Korg, which allow you to kind of keep the deck topped off on your opponent, which feeds the Darkhawk, and of course your bounce synergy overall with the Beast discounting pretty much everything here. So then got a very interesting deck there in Elsa Bounce. Destroy. Destroy has been pretty interesting because it's really ebbed and flowed in popularity. The win rate's hovering about 55%. It's just because a lot of people aren't playing Shadow King, so people aren't playing Shang-Chi either. The counters to Destroy just aren't being played, and Armor is being not included in so many of these Elsa decks, right? Because people are just getting greedy. They want like the really high-end centric combo decks, and so everything that counters Destroys is being cut out. So Destroy is able to just kind of go completely amok here, and this is exactly what you see. The buff to Forge, or not, it wasn't supposed to be a buff, but going to a 1 cost allows to much easier kind of be implemented in this Deadpool-based deck. Destroying Forge with a Carnage or whatever is very easy, very kind of energy and mana and power efficient. So the deck just likes to destroy things. Forge, Deadpool, X23, it just feeds the beast for death. The major risk to this, which holds the win rate down, of course, is Mobius and Mobius, which is still a decent percentage of the meta, which completely nullifies death. No pun intended, because Null is still obviously being played as well. Now we have Destroy done, and then finally we have Hela Casino. Now this is extremely popular, but the win rate's much lower than others. So I want to talk about it because I know there are some quests for discard, but although this is one of the most popular decks in the meta, I do warn you the win rate is much lower than you might expect. It's fun to play, but if you're expecting this Hela Casino style deck to be getting it infinite or something like that, there are way better choices. I just want to do a PSA here because this deck is rising in popularity, but its win rate is not nearly what you think it is. It's okay for Hela Casino, I guess, but it's probably not what you expect if you're trying to rank up. Regardless, I hope this video helped you. If you're interested in more content, definitely hit the like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and we'll see you in that next Marvel Snap video.